Lisa D. Holmes is a graphic designer by trade and a hiking fanatic by accident. Using the Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree she earned in Kansas City Art Institute, she has spent more than 20 years designing a successful career. But Lisa's life changed when she moved to Oregon in 2007 and became obsessed with the beauty of the Pacific Northwest landscape. She has since spent much of her time hiking the trails of Oregon and Washington and taking photographs of everything she's encountered, over 8,000 so far. Combining her photos, her map, and book design skills, and her desire to share her journey with others has led her to her new career of creating books about landscapes she loves. Lisa lives and works in Southeast Portland's Westmoreland neighborhood with her husband, John Clark Vincent.
Thank you. As he mentioned, I'm a graphic designer, and I've been a graphic designer for over 20 years. I'm definitely not a writer, so I never thought I would be doing a book. This has really surprised me that I ended up doing a book, but it all really started back when, 7 years ago, when we decided to move to Portland. And it's a 3-day road trip, and I had a really bad cold, and I was really bored, so I took 450 photos from the car, and I ended up putting those on a blog, so I could share that with my friends and family back in Kansas City. And over time, I decided to become a tourist here in Portland to get to know the area, and really decided to start hiking, and became really obsessed with hiking as soon as I did, and started really researching it, bought pretty much every hiking book and a book about the geology and landscapes of Oregon and Washington that I could, and I've got a bookshelf like this of hiking books. Yeah, like me, every time we're at some kind of travel information center, I stop and I get all the publications and I save all of them, and so I'm really obsessed with this area and what it has to offer. And over time, I've continued blogging, and it's turned into more of a hiking blog. And I've shared, now I think there's over 130 or 40 posts on that blog after 7 years. And like you mentioned, I have over 8,000 photos I've taken on these hikes. So over time, my friends kept telling me I needed to turn this into a book, but I knew that my photos weren't those kind of photos. They weren't like coffee table book material. What I'm really doing is documenting the hikes as I do them, so I'm just literally like, walk, shoot, the whole time I'm hiking. I might shoot 150 photos on one hike, which does slow me down a little bit, but I'm not setting up with a tripod. I'm not doing what photographers call the money shots. I don't do that kind of work, so I knew that kind of book wasn't right, so I just kind of set aside, that every time somebody would tell me I needed to do that, I was like, yeah, we've got a lot of really great hiking books here, and we don't really need another one, but one of the things I really think was missing for me was a really visual version of a hiking book. I'm from Missouri, which is the show me state, and so I figured, I always say that, I'm like, you gotta show me something, so I figured, what really doesn't exist is a book that is full color with lots of photos to really show you what it looks like on a hike. And also I think the maps could be better in a lot of books. And as a graphic designer, I've done hundreds of maps over my career. So I've done a lot of work with architects and engineers. I'm used to dealing with GIS files and things like that. I've done a lot of publication design, magazines, brochures, things like that. So then I started thinking about, well, maybe this is something I could do. Maybe this is a book that needs to be done that doesn't exist out there. So I started trying to come up with ideas for what it might entail, and decided on a format of 25 hikes, and came up with a layout for each hike. Has 4 pages, so you get 2 full pages of photos for every single hike. So that's about 400 photos in this book altogether. And so by the time you get anywhere from 10 to 15 photos on a hike, you really do get a sense of what it's going to look like. And then I also really wanted to focus on the maps a lot. And for me, something in color that has everything called out, everything from like, I want to know what the name of every waterfall is, or I just want to know everything that is possible to know on a hike, and I want it all on my map. And so I found some files that I could deal with that were like from Forest Service or places like that, where I could get the topo lines and the streams and things like that, and then I just redrew everything on top of it. So I drew the trails and I drew all the call outs, and I spent months and months on just the maps. Actually, I should say, when I started this book, when I had the idea and I decided I was actually going to do it, most people would start with the writing, but I'm a designer, so the first thing I did was I came up with a layout approach for just one hike, and then I sent that around to a lot of designer friends to get feedback and say, what do you think? Do you think this is going to be a good book? And incorporated a lot of their thoughts, and then I started on putting all the photos in place, because when you've got over 8,000, you've got to narrow it down to about 400. That's a lot of time to spend, like picking out the very best photos. I also had to finish some of the hikes that I chose. I hadn't done yet, so I had to and do some of these hikes. It's just fantastic. It's like, I've got to go to work now. I'm going on a hike, which I couldn't think of anything better to do. So first I put in I did the layout, then I put in all the photos, then I concentrated on the maps, and that took months. Then on the overview maps, I really wanted to do something different there that showed the relief of the area, so you would have a sense of the fact that there are mountains and things in the area. So I found this resource online where I could get relief maps, and I would have the rights to use them through Creative Commons licensing. But they didn't look like what I wanted, so I knew how to take them into Photoshop and modify them and colorize them so they would look good with the rest of my layout. And then I take them into another program and I draw everything on them. I redrew all the highways and put all the spots on there for where the hikes are. And then the very last part I did for the book was the writing part, because as I said, I'm really not a writer. I'm fortunate to be married to one, however, who agreed to be my editor, but he made me go through 3 drafts on the writing before he would even look at it. And I'm really glad he did, because I got started and I wrote the first draft on everything, and that took me a really long time. And I thought, hey, this is pretty good. And he's like, no, you got to look at it again. And so I did, and I was like, yeah, well, maybe it wasn't so great the first time, but after the second time, it's really there. And he's like, no, one more time before I'll look at it. So I did, and I was amazed at the things that I found the third time that I really needed to fix. So that made by the time it was ready for him, I think I made his job a lot easier, because he didn't have as much to deal with by then. So this is a self-published book. I've learned a ton about self-publishing, and I'm working with CreateSpace on this one. And because it is a full-color, full-bleed book, I've run into all kinds of quality issues that I end up having to quality check every single book that I get. And I'm still working with them on resolving some of these issues, but most books aren't designed to this amount of detail where every single margin in the book matters a lot, and if something gets cut or trimmed just a little bit too much in one area, then it really has a big impact on a book design like this. So
or a hiker.
Yeah. You just keep going forever. You do trails out of there. So I've learned a lot about that, and I've also had to market the book all myself. And since it's only been out just barely 2 months, my first order came from the Made in Oregon store. So this book is at every Made in Oregon store. It's at Hoyt Arboretum, and they've also asked me to do an author presentation at their auditorium next month. And it's in every New Seasons store. New Seasons has been fantastic. They're actually going to feature this book in one of their ads next month. And they've placed 2 different orders from me, so that's really great. And it's also at Jacobson's Books, of course. So that's pretty much my story. Thank you.